Hey there, it's Thundersmeg here. Today I will be explaining a 2008 movie called The Burrowers. Let's get started. In the year 1879, a small band of pioneers embarked on a journey into uncharted lands. Among them was an Irish immigrant named Fergus Coffey, who found his heart captivated by Mary Ann Stewart, a resident of one of the frontier settlements. One fateful night, the tranquility of Mary Ann's family was shattered by a sudden attack from a mysterious group of assailants. Realizing the impending peril, Mary Ann's father directed his 4 children to seek refuge in the basement, while he bravely confronted the invaders alone. The echoing sounds of gunshots and the anguished cries of Mary Ann's father pierced the night air, leaving the children devastated. Before they could react, they sensed movement above them, in the creaking floorboards of their hideout. Desperately striving to maintain absolute silence, the children's efforts were in vain as an unseen presence breached their sanctuary, subjecting the entire family to a brutal assault. The following day, Fergus arrived at his lover's home, only to find it deserted. A sense of foreboding gripped him as he ventured to neighboring houses, discovering lifeless bodies strewn about. Suspecting hostile Native American kidnappers, Fergus resolved to assemble a group of volunteers to embark on a quest to find the missing residents. In the following scene, we meet a gentleman named William Parcher, who is savoring a meal with his spouse and their adolescent son, Dobie. Their joyful moment is abruptly interrupted by Fergus, who brings forth news of people gone missing. Upon receiving this information, William consents to join the search party. Dobie's mother insists that her son accompanies them, believing that the expedition will help him come of age. Upon revisiting the location of the tragedy, William observes that the victims bear unusual wounds on their necks, leaving him puzzled about the weapon used by the attackers. He also stumbles upon an enigmatic cavity in the ground, its origin shrouded in mystery. Soon afterward, volunteers from various ranches in the county converge at the settlement, including an administrator named John Clay and a freedman in pursuit of fortune named Callahan. An imperious officer by the name of Henry Victor assumes command, accompanied by a cavalry unit. Together, they inter the deceased in the yard before embarking on their mission. During their journey, William's horse unexpectedly becomes ensnared in freshly excavated earth and tumbles over. However, they pay scant attention to this, unaware that something bloodied lies concealed beneath the soil. After a while, they spy a young Native American in the distance. Henry shoots at the boy's horse before hastily moving to apprehend him. William produces a portrait of the Stewart family and asks if the boy has any knowledge of them, but the boy remains silent. Noticing the boy's reticence, Henry binds him to the wagon and directs his companions to employ harsh methods, coercing the boy to divulge the needed information. Though the other members of the group disapprove of this cruelty, they dare not confront Henry and his associates. Later, around a campfire, Fergus and Callahan engage in conversation, exchanging tales from their previous lives. Their discussion reveals that Callahan serves as a chef for Henry, while Fergus left New York due to job opportunities. Fergus mentions arriving here with his sister, but she succumbed to tuberculosis during the journey. As night falls, Henry instructs 3 men to stand guard and shoot if anything seems awry. Eventually, one of the guards detects suspicious movements in the field. When he investigates, an unidentified creature attacks him, resulting in his demise. In the morning, Fergus awakens to find Henry consumed by anger. Upon inquiry, William relays that 4 of his comrades mysteriously vanished during the previous night. Subsequently, the assembly shifts its focus towards questioning the Native American youth, who imparts information concerning a mysterious entity known as the Burrowers. According to the boy, these enigmatic beings hold a particular fascination for white individuals and intend to pursue them relentlessly. Henry and his companions harbor skepticism regarding the boy's assertions and opt to subject him to interrogation through force. This provokes a heated standoff between Henry and John, only quelled by the intervention of the others. Soon after, the group detects numerous holes in the ground, akin to those encountered earlier. Subsequently, Fergus, William, Dobie, and John resolve to break away from Henry's faction and continue their pursuit independently. With night descending upon them, the group decides to halt and seek reprieve. Gathered around the flickering campfire, they deliberate their next moves. Their unfamiliarity with the Burrowers leaves them bereft of any viable leads to pursue. Shortly thereafter, a mysterious sound captures their attention, prompting them to heighten their alertness. They stand on the verge of opening fire when they realize that Callahan, not wanting to stay with Henry any longer, is the source of the commotion. The following day, the group resumes their quest for clues. Along their route, they come across numerous pits and stumble upon an abandoned wagon. While taking a breather, Dobie notices a cluster of golden hair protruding from the earth. His curiosity leads him to pull it out, only to be startled by something beneath the ground. The group gathers around and starts digging. To their astonishment, they uncover a young girl's lifeless body with open eyes. Upon extracting her, they observe a deep neck wound identical to the one they had seen earlier. Suddenly, a sound emanates from her shoe, and upon removing it, they are astonished to discover that she is still alive, moving her toe. The group is left bewildered, pondering why the Native Americans would bury people alive. Fergus is consumed by worry, fearing that Marianne might suffer a similar fate. The next morning, Dobie is tasked with taking the girl to the nearest settlement for medical help, while the rest of the group continues their mission. As they penetrate deeper into the forest, the group senses a presence trailing them. Shortly after, a tribesman raises his firearm as a greeting, but Fergus, misinterpreting it as a threat, opens fire. This angers John, who responds by forcefully knocking him off his horse. His ill-advised action places the entire group in jeopardy. Not much later, the tribespeople open fire, and John becomes the initial casualty. With swift reactions, Fergus, William, and Callahan seek shelter behind a deceased horse before launching a counterattack. Meanwhile, Dobie and the immobile girl halt in the midst of a field to take a breather. He gently eases her to the ground and shares a kiss on her lips before lying beside her. Suddenly, Dobie is assaulted by a grayish creature that slices his throat and spews a fluid, rendering him paralyzed, just like the girl. The creature then drags him to a specific location and buries him alive. Much like the girl, Dobie can see and hear but is powerless, save for moving his finger. In the woods, the trio remains concealed behind the horse until the situation calms. During this, William spots some toxic plants nearby and instructs his companions to collect them. They ignite the plants, releasing a poisonous gas. This ultimately liberates them from their pursuers. Following this, the three of them continue their journey on horseback, despite their fatigue. As night falls, the group halts at a spot and kindles a fire. William expresses his grief over their fallen comrade, while Fergus grapples with concerns about the brutality of the Native Americans. After a brief discussion, William volunteers to keep watch, allowing his two comrades to rest. At midnight, Fergus is roused by an unusual noise and is taken aback to find his companions gone. In response to the situation, he swiftly seizes his weapon, taking precautions. Shortly afterward, Callahan returns to their campfire and notifies Fergus that William is nowhere to be located. Suddenly, piercing screams pierce the night air, prompting Fergus to hurl smoldering logs in the same direction. Their eyes then lock onto William, valiantly battling grotesque beings with enormous mouths and countless fangs. In a rapid reaction, Callahan takes aim at the creatures and fires, sending them fleeing and rescuing William. However, the encounter leaves William with a gash on his neck, mirroring the injuries of previous victims. As a result, he gradually loses feeling in his limbs. Recognizing that it's unsafe to halt, the group presses on atop their horses, even through the obscurity. While they ride, William beseeches Fergus to deliver Dobie's mother the cross should anything befall him. After a full day of riding, the trio spots a distant blaze and advances toward it. There, they encounter a Native American woman and inquire about her intentions. The woman responds in her native tongue, understood only by William. She quickly spots a gash on his neck and warns him that the Burrowers will return for him. When they inquire further about the creatures, she recounts the elaborate tale. According to her, the Burrowers once feasted on bison, but when Native Americans started consuming buffalo meat, the Burrowers shifted to hunting humans. She describes how the Burrowers initially poison their prey and bury them for decomposition. Once the blood thickens and the organs soften, they return to feed. A specific tribe known as the Ute has expertise in battling the Burrowers. Armed with this knowledge, the group, accompanied by the woman, embarks on a quest to find the Ute tribe. After a while, the woman observes a rash covering William's wound and warns that it will make him an easier target for the Burrowers. However, Fergus and Callahan are puzzled by her words and turn to William for clarification. Fearing abandonment, William shares something different with them. After a lengthy journey, William proposes they halt near a pole and wait for the Ute tribe to locate them. The woman insists that staying in that location is unsafe and urges them to keep moving. Nevertheless, William disregards her counsel, while the rest of the group fails to comprehend. Night falls, and they gather around a campfire. By this point, William's body appears to be succumbing to paralysis, and his movements become increasingly limited. At the stroke of midnight, the group becomes aware of the eerie Burrowers' presence, compelling them to remain vigilant. When they finally spot the menacing creatures, they open fire. Regrettably, William's lack of precision leads to an unintended shot, striking Callahan in the leg. Sensing the impending peril, the woman resorts to using sign language, urgently signaling for them to evacuate the area. Following this, Fergus comes to the aid of the injured Callahan and William, assisting them in returning to their horses before making a swift departure. On their journey, they unexpectedly encounter two armed individuals from the Ute tribe. These men take notice of William's injury and decide to accompany them, explaining that they utilize ailing individuals as bait. Despite the valiant efforts of the remaining comrades to resist, the two Ute tribesmen hold them at gunpoint before departing with William. In the process, one of the Ute inadvertently drops a belt containing items belonging to the individuals they've used as bait. As they make their exit, Fergus retrieves the belt and finds Marianne's brooch inside, which profoundly distresses him. Recognizing that their quest is now futile, Callahan suggests they return to their homes. However, Fergus is resolute in his determination to pursue William, as he is driven to find a way to eliminate the Burrowers before they claim the lives of other families. In the subsequent scene, Fergus navigates through the dense woods, tracking the suspicious sounds and footprints. Before long, one of the Ute tribesmen ambushes him from behind, but Fergus manages to retrieve his firearm and eliminate his assailant. In that critical moment, he hears William's anguished cries, compelling him to sprint in that direction. Upon arrival, Fergus discovers William bound to a tree, completely paralyzed. But just as he's about to set him free, the Burrowers emerge from the shadows. Fear-stricken, Fergus attempts to escape, inadvertently stepping into a snare that ensnares his leg. William makes a feeble attempt to fend them off, but struggles to lift his hand to aim accurately. Inadvertently, he fires a shot, striking an Ute in the distance. Following this, the Burrowers encircle William, commencing their grisly feast. Shortly after, one of the creatures spots Fergus and begins a slow approach. Desperation drives Fergus to free his trapped leg, but all his efforts prove futile. Crawling backward, he nearly triggers yet another concealed trap. Observing this, he hurls the trap at the creature, securing his liberation. He then observes the other Burrowers lying motionless on the ground. Here, it's revealed that the Ute had administered certain substances to William, causing the creatures to fall into unconsciousness. Following this, the Ute indicates a collection of spears, which Fergus employs to skewer all the creatures. Despite his relentless efforts, the creatures remain unyielding, causing him to doubt his success. A brief time later, the sun ascends, and its rays ultimately incinerate the Burrowers. In the aftermath, Fergus transports the wounded Ute tribesmen to where Callahan and the woman are recuperating. Fergus recounts the entire ordeal to Callahan, underscoring the significance of preserving the Ute's life. Otherwise, the secret ingredient of the drug will perish with him. Subsequently, Fergus decides to journey to the nearest settlement in pursuit of a physician, leaving the trio behind. In the subsequent scene, Fergus returns to Callahan and the others, accompanied by a doctor. To his astonishment, Henry and his men have already arrived ahead of him. He bears witness to a grim sight. Henry has executed the Ute tribesman and the woman by hanging, unaware of the actual truth. Henry warmly greets his old friend, recounting his achievements. When Fergus inquires about Callahan, Henry claims that he succumbed to his injuries. Henry, still convinced that the Native Americans are responsible for the chaos, vows to eliminate them all. Confronted with this devastating setback, Fergus departs from the camp without uttering a word.